Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to this week's episode of the Montpelier Happy Hour here on WVEW 107.7 LP Brattleboro, your community radio station. I'm the host and producer of the show, Olga Peters, and this is the show where we talk about how everything in Montpelier shakes out for the rest of us. I want to welcome this week's guest, Amanda Ellis-Thurber, who is running for Wyndham 7 District, which is one of 3 districts in Brattleboro. And she is running against regular contributor, you may all know, Emily Kornheiser, who is actually in Montpelier this week, busy with the Governor's Institute. So, hey, Amanda, I'm really glad to see you today. I'm glad we're going to have a chance to talk.
I'm very happy to see you, Olga. Yeah, happy summer.
Happy summer.
Staying cool?
What's staying cool? Well, I was just about to say, hey, folks, you may hear some background noise today because it is way too hot for me to close my window here. And Amanda, the storm, took out her modem last night. And so she's in her creamy stand at the farm. So you may hear creamy machine noises in the background from time to time.
Yeah. All in a day's work. We're mixing it. Diversified farming includes Zooming on a podcast.
Exactly. I love it. Amanda, I was actually talking to a friend this morning out of Kentucky and telling them I was about to do this interview with you when your text came through about the being in your creamy stand. And it was fun. I got to tell her about what creamies were and organic dairy farming, and Vermont took on a whole new meaning for her.
Very cool. I get that question a lot. People say, well, what's the difference between a creamy and a soft serve? And it's the Vermont vernacular. And it's lovely. It's also really fun to write in cursive because it has lots of E's.
It is. It's a fun word to look at. I hear you. And what's your farm specialty? Do you have a specialty creamy?
Oh, our Vermont maple creamy. We buy our creamy mix from the Miller Farm in Vernon for certified organic soft serve mix in New England. And we add our dark amber maple syrup. And I would say one of our other specialties is we have a topping by Tavernier. I feel like I'm doing ads. I should have Tavernier chocolates. They make a topping that we put on our creamy called Dirt, which is crushed chocolate, Ecuadorian cocoa powder, smoked sea salt, and maple sugar. And
that sounds good.
Like bitter thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, with the heat, our dirt turned to mud. So I'm waiting for my next delivery when the hot spell ends. As I mentioned, my crew is here to say hello. Would you be okay?
Okay. Yes, please bring them on in.
Come on in. You want to introduce yourself? Here, there's more. There's 3 more people, but one is missing. You guys, this is Olga Peters. She's an awesome journalist from Brattleboro.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you all.
I'm Jordy. I'm Eva. Jess. I'm Broden.
Hello.
And Jane goes out there somewhere.
He's coming.
Do you know Olga? Anyway, it's because of these guys that I'm able to Zoom with you today, and they have been putting up with high temperatures in the field with great attitudes, harvesting the food that we sell at the stand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you all came in to introduce yourselves, because as you're probably learning, being a lawmaker or even a candidate lawmaker, you can't do it alone. You got all the people who have to back you up. So thank you for coming in and saying hi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good to meet you.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you guys. You're awesome. Did you finish the garden?
Yes.
Oh my God, amazing. Oh, fielder's choice.
Yeah.
We'll
figure it out. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So they harvested our garlic this morning, which is actually record time, and it's getting pretty hot. So that's amazing. Great.
Yeah, being in the field, it is hot work. Well, thank you for introducing us to your crew, because like I said, even being a candidate, it takes time. And we are a citizen legislature, which means it takes time away from our regular lives. Which I would love to start with my first question for you, Amanda. You know, for folks who don't know Amanda, she co-runs the farm, Lilac Ridge Farm, with her husband, Ellis-Thurber. And she also has a background as a ski instructor. She holds a master's degree in mental health counseling. And you provide on the farm education workshops as well, which is all pretty exciting. But I'm curious, like, with all that on your plate, why did you decide to run for the State House?
Well, thanks for that question, Olga. Why did I decide to run for the State House? Um, our farm is a hub of a lot of community activity, both at that's the sound I was talking about. Can you hear over me?
Not bad, actually. I don't really hear it.
Not bad. Okay. We are a hub. I will get a little closer. We're a hub of a lot of community activity through our farm stand, also creamy stand, and a lot of topics were coming up repeatedly. Affordability, drugs in our community, concerns about our schools, and education and finance, because that was, on everyone's mind, because it was actively being debated in Montpelier in April, and when I kind of opened things up. So from those conversations, I decided that I would try to find maybe if somebody might run, because competition is important for democracy.
Mhm.
So not just me, but some other friends too. And everyone else said no. And so I said yes. And I've been asked, and I had a nice conversation with Emily last week, and she said, well, why didn't you talk to me first? Why didn't you talk to Tristan? And I think everyone would have said, don't do it. Don't do it. So I did it. And it's been an exciting journey. And what I want to talk about is the journey, right? I think that we can do things differently here in Brattleboro because Vermont is different. We can run an election, a campaign cycle, and do it kindly, be respectful and nice to one another, because truly it's the journey. We live shoulder to shoulder. I live just down the road from Emily. I am friends with her friends. Some of them are customers. I think that we can do it differently. And I'll get a little emotional about this, but if nothing else, this journey will prove that we can do that. When you're playing football, right, you have the quarterback, say, I'm the quarterback, Emily's the quarterback. Throw that winning touchdown, it gets caught in the end zone for the win. The quarterback didn't win the game. The team won the game. And like you're saying, being in politics is being part of a team. I am a rookie and probably, didn't quite realize what I was getting into when I got into it. But now that I'm into it, I feel more conviction that it was the right thing to do. More voices, more reaching out. If Emily wins the election, she will have heard from more voices than she would have if I didn't run. And I think that's important because we all want a strong community. We all want a healthy community. We all want to get along. And most especially now with national politics as ugly as it is. We're different. We're different.
Thank you for that. You used the phrase a couple times, the journey, doing things differently. I'd love if we could dig into that a little bit. Like, what are you seeing that needs to be different, and how would you go about it?
Sure. Main policy, there's an again, shoot. The main policy areas where I differ from Emily are the following. I'm going to put first on my list a choice of a safe injection site in Brattleboro versus using opiate settlement money to engage in more robust treatment, residential treatment, and even more importantly, bridges to independence and work for people in recovery. That also includes sober housing. Because of our opiate epidemic, we have huge sectors of our workforce that are not able to work. It's very hard. as we know, it's hard on families, it's hard on individuals, and people are sick. And drug addiction is like cancer. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your race or ethnicity. It can hit a broad spectrum of people. And so that we have to make a choice, in my opinion, to not allow for using illegal drugs legally, but actually use our law enforcement supports, our recovery supports. We have chronic issue with drug trafficking going up I-91. And in my door-to-door knocking, I had the pleasure of speaking with an active state police officer who outlined for me a very, very simple change that could happen to our state law that would allow our state police force to arrest people that are in possession of firearms and illegal drugs. Currently, our state police officers can't do that by state law. They call in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And there are a limited number of those officers in our state. I believe the officer told me 6, but maybe people will comment on this and say, no, there's more or there's less. So a small change where if we followed the federal guidelines for possession of firearms and illegal drugs, so I'm talking about people I'm not talking about your average citizen who's, experimenting with drugs. I'm talking about people who are selling drugs to vulnerable people on our streets. If we could make changes like that, if that could be heard and heard quickly, we could start addressing what's going on with the epidemic that we have in our state. And currently, we see it most clearly downtown. It's really hard. But I do think that there are creative solutions that we can get together and do. And I had the good fortune of getting a meeting with Leonard Howard, Chief Howard, our fire chief down on Elliott Street. And I said, has any legislator ever come in and just sat with you? So the new head of the EMS, also Ricky Fritz, and assistant fire chief. And he said, no. And I was like, well, because we have a lot of boots on the ground here, and we need to listen to the boots on the ground as our first responders. It's really important to have those voices in. So that's the first one. But I'll let you ask another question, or I can keep going on other things.
No, I'd love to hear about where other policies. And I'll back up just so you have context about where I'm coming from. I think there's a lot of things, and folks on the show have probably heard me say something similar in the past. There's a lot of things we talk about that we'll all nod and go, but not necessarily defined in the same way. I think affordability is one of those things. I think prosperity is one of those things. And so that's one reason I appreciate hearing about policy, because that's a little more tangible, and you can kind of see like what's feeding into it and the outcomes you're hoping to get. And so that's one reason I would love to hear more about your policy thoughts.
Certainly. And they are policy thoughts. I haven't been to Montpelier. I haven't been there for 6 years. I haven't been there at all. So aside from following stories, but pretty much from the lens of a citizen, of a recipient of laws, not a maker of laws.
Right.
And there's a huge difference there. There's that again. So I think I'm going to go sort of bigger to smaller. So starting with where we're at right now with education and finance. There is a commission that's been created to study the study of issue. I think it's a 2-year timeline to figure out some real solutions. Those are going to be some really tough solutions that are going to happen in Montpelier in these next 2 years. I'm going to go back to what I hear when I'm at the farm stand. Frustrated voices saying there have been over 35 studies and commissions, and we're back at one again. That's
Mhm.
since 2000. That's a lot of studies and commissions to still be, knocking no, I'm not going to say knocking our heads against the wall, but still trying to figure it out. I understand there are lots of voices, and I understand it takes time. And I am going to, I want to let Emily know, if she's watching this, that I respect her very much. And I know she has a very, very difficult job. And there are a lot of voices and then voices change because new people are elected. And it's a tough task. Vermont's in a tough, tough place. I hope that the commission comes out with some good stuff. I also know that we have a decreasing population of students. That's tough. Those are going to be that's why I'm aiming at the tough decisions. I do believe in trusting the experts, superintendents, teachers, for their, recommendations. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. But I think what I am hearing is, I mean, a lot of people feel frustrated about education financing and taxes and that whole ball of wax. But, are you at this point, are you, commission aside, what do you see as the way forward? Any thoughts on how we can shift this situation that we're in right now? And granted, to be fair to everyone involved, there are things in this situation that are out of our control, like the cost of health insurance, or the fact that a lot of our buildings were all built at the same time, so the roofs are falling apart at the same time, some things like that. But what do you see as the way forward?
Well, Vermont is a small state, right? 650,000. We can't do it all ourselves. None of us is just going to make this by ourselves. The healthcare question is definitely a nod to our federal government. Things would be a lot simpler if we all had national health insurance, a lot simpler. That's a pie in the sky probably idea, but that's, that really is at the root of it. However, without national health insurance, perhaps creative solutions, if Becca Bell, if you're watching, could be to leverage those insurance companies for teachers. If we're experiencing those levels of health insurance increase, that percentage, 16% I heard, then the chances are other states are experiencing the same thing. What are some models and what are the strategies that other states are using and find successful? Teachers are really some of the most important people we have in our community. Truly, I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I also know that the situation since COVID has been brutal. And I'm just thankful that teachers go to work every day, because if they didn't, then who would educate our kids, and they deserve a summer break, but it's also complicated. It's also complicated how pensions work, how it's complicated. And so I don't mean to sound like just an average citizen, though I am an average citizen, saying that's complicated and it's not fair and we need to do better, but we do. And if elected, I would represent the people. So I don't have all the answers.
I think also on your website, you talk a lot about tax policy. And I'm curious, I would love to hear your thoughts about tax policy, because not to keep comparing you to Emily, but she serves on Ways and Means. So that's like,
we're in an election. That's what it's about. It's fine.
She is deep into tax policy, probably more than any of us will ever understand. So what are you thinking is, you talk about tax policy that doesn't hurt the middle class. What's the way forward on that you can see, or that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking maybe this question is a sideways way of asking about the wealth tax.
No,
No, okay, I mean, because we
you can go there if you want, but no.
go there. Yeah, I mean, the surcharge for people who earn $500,000 or more in a year is, I think that would be fine.
Mhm.
I don't think it's out of, I mean, why not? However, the way the law is constructed right now, and that I know that with another biennium go up, you work on it again because it stayed on the wall. I think there were some holes in it that people could work around. People could declare $499.99.
Mhm.
I mean, people are crafty, and I think that something like that has to be really well crafted. I also, though many people have said, don't worry about that, Amanda, that's not really a big deal, but I worry that it would make Vermont increasingly less attractive to do business, do profitable business that hire people to do profitable jobs that would naturally increase our tax base because we have people earning more money. So that's a concern of mine, though people have said, I don't know, maybe. Is there going to be flight? I don't know. State of Massachusetts has their progressive tax is live. And I've heard anecdotal information that larger startup tech companies are choosing not to set up shop in Massachusetts like they did. I don't know.
So what
Sort of where I stand on it. And the fear is that you start a surcharge like that on this amount, right? And that works for a couple of years, and then those people leave, and then it's on a lower amount, and then it's on a lower amount, and then it's on a lower amount. This is not the middle class issue. But probably my biggest beef with the wealth tax is about the way it's talked about, right? It's us versus them. Let's go get them. Make them hear that they're here. That rhetoric I find divisive. I very much depend on summer people for my seasonal business to come and buy my products. Sure, am I grumpy about that? A little bit, but yet they pay the loan on the creaming machine to help me pay my employees. They keep a small farm business going. It is the choir we're singing with right now. I think a possible solution could be to increase property taxes for second homeowners or increase our non-resident tax in the summertime with the Marlboro Music Festival just up the hill. Our road is teeming with people really enjoying the state of Vermont with a lot of financial resources. And they love our state too. And I think that they'd be fine with something like that. I mean, it's the cost of having this opportunity. I did do a little research into why it is difficult right now for us to tax second homes at a higher rate because of our homestead tax, just the way it's oriented. That could be workshopped. I think that would be a great source of revenue. So. Now the middle class issue, I'm gonna say economic viability, economic opportunity, economic growth. Businesses are our engine room of how a state runs and exchanges commerce. That's just how it is. Vermont is not seen as business friendly. Vermont, most people agree, has not been business friendly for a long time. And I'm not saying we should become our neighbor New Hampshire, because there are a lot of programs that we do here that are just, I'm so proud of, like our early childhood education. And but we have to incentivize more business. We have to make it not so hard.
So define hard. What makes it hard?
Well, I'll tell you about my business, for example. So Brattleboro just put on a 1%, an extra 1% tax.
The local
Sales tax.
option sales tax. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a food producer, right? Not a primary food producer like vegetables, but a added value food that I serve, like a maple creamy, I now have to charge 10% on each cone, which made me have to raise the prices because I used to be able to sell an ice cream for $3. And then I kind of did the math and realized I was only making $2.36 per item. So that includes a cone, the labor that I hired to serve it, my ingredients, because they're organic, they're more expensive, our own maple syrup, which is expensive. That was less. So a kitty size is now $4. That one extra percent is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Two, that's my own personal experience and with other business owners. The other thing is that we now, and I think it's all great, right? So we now have an extra percentage added on to our payroll.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay your employees, can you hear me with the background noise?
If you can get a little closer to the computer, that would help. Thank you.
So businesses that follow the rules, that have their employees and pay payroll tax and workers' compensation on that wage, they're under more stress with this tax, pure and simple. But it's cool because it's going to early childhood education. I mean, that's great. But it's on the businesses. And that makes businesses have a harder time running.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's cost imbalances, but a lot of business owners are like, we do all this work for the state, but the state hates us. Like, or not the state hates us, but the big bad evil business. It's kind of a theme that is resounding. However, we do a lot of the work. And I'm not saying they're bad actors out there. There's some big corporations that are bad actors. But 99% of Vermont businesses are family businesses like ours.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's challenging. It's challenging. And people get frustrated. And when people are frustrated, they get mad. And that's nowhere we want to be. People need to have a voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, we are out of time in the first half of the show, Amanda, but folks, stay tuned. Amanda, Ellis-Thurber, and I will return in a moment for the second half of the show. Welcome back to the second half of the Montpelier Happy Hour here on WVEW 107.7 LP Brattleboro, your community radio station. If you're just joining us, I'm the host and producer of the show, Olga Peters, and I'm speaking with candidate for the House to represent the Wyndham 7 District, Amanda Ellis-Thurber. Hello, Amanda.
Hello again from the steamy day, the steamy July day in the Queenstown.
Well, before we dive in, Amanda, I just need to thank Brattleboro Community Television for taking the video version of the show and sharing it with folks around Vermont. You'll be able to see Lilac Ridge Farm's creamy stand, which is where Amanda is zooming from at the moment. Inside, yes. And want to remind folks that the views and opinions heard on the Montpelier Happy Hour are those of the host and the guest, and no one else, not their friends, not their family, not the platforms these appear on, not even the maple syrup in the famous Lilac Ridge Farm creamy. So, Amanda,
I feel like we have some, I don't know, somehow promoting our products. That's not what this is about.
It's not what it's about, but you're in a creamy stand, so I just have to go with it. So we were talking a little bit about policy in the first half of the show, and One thing I'm curious about is you put on your website, you describe yourself as a Democrat who is reasonable, responsible, pragmatic, and who hopes to be a voice for a vibrant Vermont economy. And so I'm curious, like, how do you define a vibrant economy? I'd like to start there.
I think of a vibrant Vermont economy is, I'm going to use a weird term, but it's a diverse portfolio of businesses,
Okay.
small, medium, and some large businesses. People get uncomfortable when I say large businesses. It's the large businesses initiative to request to set up shop here. I think that we are very skillful in the state of Vermont at discerning an appropriately ecological, sustainable, and good to people business. We've been very good at doing that. And many businesses are not here because we deem them not for us, not here. So that's kind of what I mean about, that's the business end. The money in the pockets end of the people that are working for companies or entrepreneurs that are starting their own businesses. There's an exchange of monies that stays in the state versus leaving the state. In southeastern Vermont, we are highly susceptible to our dollars that we earn from our jobs being spent outside of our state. And there's a lure, even the most conscientious people most community-minded people will cross the river and go to New Hampshire where they have no sales tax. And sadly, those tax dollars don't stay in Vermont. What's happened in our downtown is that more businesses have left, i.e. Sam's. So the same material goods that you would have bought in your downtown are no longer available. So then, like I said, even the most conscientious local consumer will probably have to drive across the river to get a pair of underwear, for example, maybe a pair of socks. And that's too bad because we need those tax dollars here. We do. Yeah.
So, and excuse me, folks, I'm just going to pull this window down because I think I'm getting some background noise. So what do you see as the solution to that, especially as a border community where, Keene, New Hampshire, Greenfield, Massachusetts, hop, skip, and jump away from many of our communities?
Well, I think many people in our community already have a mindset that they want to support local businesses, right? So, for example, for my campaign signs, Brian Tyler, a neighbor, owns a big electrical business in town, said you should go to Howard Printing, right? They're local, It's very tempting with the online marketplace to be like, oh, wow, it's less expensive, blah, 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 blah. But I think most people in Brattleboro have a conscientiousness about supporting local businesses, about understanding the value of their dollar in businesses here versus elsewhere. I think that people are thinking about that more and more. With Sam's leaving, like, shoot, why didn't I just pay a little more and go downtown? Why did I choose to buy online, or why did I go over? Why did I whatever? So I do think that we have the conscientiousness here. Now we just need the businesses to come here that are, decent enough size and are able to hold enough inventory that people go to them. There's, I think 2 or 3, you might know more than this, new breweries that are going to be opening right on Main Street, at the River Garden and also the TD Bank building. These are both Massachusetts based companies, but they see our town as like great, a place where we can have a lot of nightlife and bring excitement downtown. And that's wonderful because I think we all know that too. It's just that we're in a we're in a stage right now that's we're hopefully in a growth stage. We have to make a change to have a mindset to be in a growth stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we're shrinking. And not only are we shrinking with our businesses, but we're also shrinking with our working residents. And we have most of our state is retired or near retirement, which is the wonderful choir that we have. And 100% we need to honor our older Vermonters and create opportunities for living and choices where they can thrive, because they're critical to the volunteer community in our town, to the working community too. I mean, a lot of seniors go back to work to be busy, but also maybe to, to have more money to pay, like, for example, an increase in their property taxes that's coming, if you're on a fixed income. So I think people are pretty practical that way. So going back to the question, how would we do it? How would we change it? Well, I'm going to keep asking that question on the campaign trail when I go door to door, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds. Many people are feeling hopeless, but like more people are feeling hopeful. We can do it. We live in a very special community that everyone loves. I particularly love, and that's why I'm doing this.
Thank you. I'd love to touch on the first half of that statement too, from your website, where a Democrat who is reasonable, responsible, and pragmatic. It makes it sound like perhaps that's not happening amongst the Democratic Party, who's not naming names, literally not naming names, but it makes it sound like comparing yourself to Dems now, like that's not happening. And I'm curious about how.
That's interesting that you read it that way. That's interesting. I wonder if
probably because I hear it from Governor Scott a lot. That
I've heard that
the Dems are not reasonable, responsible, and pragmatic.
I don't tune into what Governor Scott says so much, and so Emily said that when we sat together. She said, that word reasonable, like Governor Scott used that word reasonable. And I was like, why do the Republicans get to co-opt everything? Everything. This is a tangent, just a little sidebar tangent, because we're having fun here. I went to Restaurant Depot where I get supplies for my creamy stand, right? I get my cones, I get my sprinkles, and I wanted to get some new aprons. Anyway, I wanted to get green ones because I'm kind of going like green theme, but they were too long. And so I was like, well, my creamy stand's red. I'll get a red apron. I'll get some red aprons. And then I was watching the news and realized that Donald Trump has co-opted the color red. So I'm not going to wear my red aprons, but darn it, like I had red hair before it turned gray. And I mean, there's still Taylor Swift, she's got red, but darn it all, they just keep co-opting something, and then it's like no longer an available word, or it's no longer an available color to wear, or it's frustrating. I think that there's that. That's just a little anecdote. So yes, I was told by Emily that the word reasonable is provocative because it's what Governor Scott said. I didn't realize Governor Scott said that, and she would, because she's been on the floor and interacting with him. And everything nowadays seems like it's a signal for something else. Everybody's looking for that signal. What team are you on? What word are you going to say that's going to put you with this person or that person? My word is kindness. My word is welcome. My word is let's talk. Or how about I listen more than I talk? And also I'll leap into another word that I was taken down for in the press, which is the word humility, right? By calling myself humble, I was not directly saying that anyone else was arrogant, right? One can call themselves what they call themselves: courageous, shy, outspoken, and not say it in reference to someone else.
Mhm.
And I know that's probably my blind spot because I haven't been in politics, right? So I'm learning that anything that I say can and will be turned against me to, because we're in a race, right? We're playing soccer against each other. I'm dribbling the ball, and somebody's going to want to take, somebody on the other team is going to want to take it away so they can score a goal. And that's the game of it, which I'm learning. But that happens with words in politics.
Hmm.
I'm imagining it always has. In our social media age, it happens very quickly.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, there are also words in this particular instance that you're using to define yourself. And so people want to understand and know who you are.
sure.
Um,
Well, I'm
uh,
reasonable. I'm practical. I run a small business. I'm a business owner. I have to make choices of what I can spend, money that I can spend, and money that I can't spend. I have to make a decision whether I need to take a loan out to, my husband and I have to take a loan out to buy a used tractor, right? Um, and farmers in general have to make those decisions all the time, and they're not big money. Like in the grand scheme of a big corporation, they're pretty small, but they're big to us because our
right.
profit margins are small. So our budget in the state of Vermont has gone up 44% since 2019, and our
I'm not
revenues
sure
have
exactly,
only
but
gone
yeah.
up 10. There's a difference there, and we have to address it. As much as we want everything, we want everything. We want everyone to have everything they need. We have to get there with revenue first before we
Mhm.
spend it. And I see that with the economic, with invigorating our economy first. Yeah, let's spend it, but let's make it first. And maybe a wealth tax in combo will be in a lot better standing. I don't know, but right now we're spending more than we're making, and we have a more dependent population. That's maybe a not nice way to say about older Vermonters or retired Vermonters, or people that are needing a lot more support. But we really do, because we're very compassionate, and that's something I'm very proud of about our state. We are truly compassionate people, and compassionate lawmakers. But the dollars are the dollars.
Mhm. Um, Going back to what you said about dependent Vermonters, I think that is something worth noting. Only I haven't seen the data for quite a few years, so I won't quote the numbers, but I do remember when Seveds first came on the scene in 2014 around the closing of Vermont Yankee, the power plant, the nuclear power plant. One economic statistic they found was that at least in Brattleboro, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is elsewhere in the state, the percentage of people who didn't earn their money from the local economy, meaning they were retired, perhaps, or maybe they were uh, needing to access, because of their economic life, needing to access state services. It kind of didn't matter like which end of the spectrum you were on, but that Brattleboro's percentage of folks who were actually earning money from the local economy was smaller than most economists would consider healthy. Um, so just to your point, just to say that, yeah, it is something to think about. Like, where is our money coming from within the economy? Where's it going back to in the economy is something worth noting.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, one area, there are two areas that Vermont taxes that seem to me, and I don't know the nuances of why,
Mhm.
and I'd like to learn why, but it's come as I've been knocking on doors that we tax senior Social Security. We are one of 11 states that do that.
Mhm.
And that is very difficult for a lot of people. Most particularly, I was talking to the former fire chief who lives in our district,
Mhm.
and he said, so why is that? I gave my life to public service. I paid taxes all along the way, federal, state. And now again, after having a life of public service, I'm getting taxed again. That's hard. That's hard for a lot of people to swallow. I understand we need tax dollars, but that still is, it just seems unfair, right? And the other one is that we tax veteran benefits. We're one of 2 states that tax veterans benefits. And like, once again, kind of, we need the money, right? But if we could figure out how to get those tax dollars in different ways, that would be great. Would be great.
Thank you. Talk to me a little bit about helping to support older Vermonters. I believe when you were at the panel discussion at Brooks Library recently, you brought that up about how Vermont could do that better. What are some of your thoughts there?
It boils down to housing opportunity. So some older Vermonters, not all, choose to downsize from their home where they raised a bunch of kids, maybe 3-bedroom homes, and choose to live somewhere where they have a few more things taken care of, like they're plowing in the winter, even sidewalks to walk on, cultural opportunities, social opportunities. And I'm going to land on that: social opportunities. Health outcomes for older Vermonters are far better in community versus lonely, all alone by yourself in your home, your big home, your medium-sized home, your small home. And so more congregate living opportunities for at all levels, fully subsidized levels, median income levels, and even thinking about people that, you know, if they really want a fancy dancy kind of thing, that would be from outside. Our state's not going to build fancy dancy things, which folds into development, right? We have the good fortune that with the Act 250 regulations passing, just a first stab, and I'm saying that from my farm perspective, because I think the smaller communities really kind of didn't work out so well for them. But we have the good fortune in Brattleboro that hopefully we can get more development going. And also creative solutions like with infrastructure that we already have, right? Wyndham Aging is an amazing group. I'm sure you've interviewed those guys, Roger Albee, Chris Hart, and trying to figure out creative solutions for Vermonters. I cold called Chris Hart one day. I said, SIT, let's make SIT. That's a campus. It's a campus already. It would be like an awesome place to retire. A lot of people choose to retire in Vermont, which is really cool. And I've met a lot of them on the campaign trail who went to other states to earn their livings and chose to come back to Brattleboro. I wasn't aware of that before I started knocking on doors. And I want Vermont to be a place where people can retire and feel like they have the services that they need. They can be in community. And so that would be a priority. And that dovetails into our like medical health professionals. You know, we're really struggling right now because we don't have the staffing to fully equip our hospitals, our ER, our outreach people. I mean, they've been in conversations. I had a conversation with the CEO of Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, and staffing is really brutal. Many of our nurses are traveling nurses. And I know this feeds back into housing too, because people aren't finding places to live. But if we could provide housing opportunities for seniors who could potentially move out of their home, freeing up housing stock, great, you know, great. So.
Thank you. You know, we've talked about housing a lot, and you've mentioned Act 250. Where else do you think Vermont needs to shift on housing?
You mean in terms of investment in housing, or are you saying, what do you mean by the word shift in housing?
Finding what it meant to you. You know, are there things we need to develop differently? Do you see holes that aren't being filled? Are there things in Act 250 that you wish had been done differently?
Yeah, that's a many-part question.
Well, you can
I,
choose
I,
whatever works.
yeah,
Those were just examples.
I'll first start with our current housing building costs. They are incredibly high. I'm sure you've heard the statistic. You know, we're looking at between $300 and $400 per square foot to build anything. I'm not sure what to do about that. I wish I did. There are communities that engage in creative solutions for housing that are modular. Logic Building Systems is an organization we have in Brattleboro.
Yep.
Check it out. They have really cool models for
They do
modular spaces that are more environmentally friendly than a modular home, which is long and skinny because it gets hot and it's hard to heat, hard to cool, right? So we have like part of invigorating our business community could be like investing in companies that are also going to grow sustainable housing. Like, great, win-win. So that's just that side of it. Act 250, from what I understand, and the reason Governor Scott vetoed it originally, and then it passed. I mean, I was just like, come on, it's something. We have a 50-year-old land use law that's just gotten us really behind. So let's do something. It's not perfect, but something. But smaller communities, you know, like in the Northeast Kingdom and that, or smaller areas here in Southern Vermont, they're not getting the exemptions that our larger communities have for building. Right. And yeah, and it's a delicate balance. We are a 600-acre farm. We have conserved farmland through the Vermont Land Trust. We use the current use valuation program, right? Because we're working farmland. You're never going to see houses on our property because of our easement with the Vermont Land Trust, which makes people who live on our road have very valuable properties. It doesn't, small house, big house, it doesn't matter. You're not going to see development in your backyard.
Right.
Also, you know, we're a big carbon sink, which is great because our planet's producing a lot of carbon. And we're, you know, growing food, which is great. So it's hard for me to talk about that topic because even though we own a lot of land, we can't build a housing development on our property to create housing, you know. Right. And that's the foresight of the conservation movement, which was great because we have this beautiful balance in our state. So there's a lot of issues with it. One big thing that accidentally didn't go through Act 250 that a lot of my farmer friends are pretty upset about is that there was going to be a stipulation for an exemption of an existing farm building that you could use for events, because all farms, just like mine, in order to be a small farm, it's almost like you have to be Disneyland, right? Yeah. We have a farm stand. We milk 40 cows and sell wholesale milk. We log trees in our forest to produce timber. We maple sugar. We Airbnb a farmhouse, right? And that's not like, that's basically to pay the bills. That's to pay employees. That's to pay heating. That's to pay our property taxes. I mean, that's part of our, and now I sell ice cream. Did I choose to sell ice cream because it was a dream I always had? No, we needed one more piece of our economic pie to create cash flow to support other things. And that is the way a lot of small businesses around us run. It's just like most Vermonters have approximately 3 jobs.
Which is true.
And sure, it keeps us active and busy and we're connecting with, you know, our coworkers and we love being busy. But I talked to my daughter about that idea, you know, she's 24. And I was like, come on, Bella, pick up another job. You're going to make some more money. She's like, no, like, that's messed up. Why can't we make enough money by doing what we do? That's sort of a generational thing, you know. Boomers like to work. But
your daughter also raises a good question about the Vermont economy. Like, why do people need to take on so many jobs?
100%. Yeah. I think we like it, but that's just me. I like to work. Work is so good for you. Work work, like I get to go to work every day, you know, that mentality that I think we're losing, and COVID hit us really hard on that, is the idea that meaningful work helps us. Meaningful work moves our bodies, it activates our minds. We get to be in community. We get to have self-efficacy and self-worth because we're part of something. If a human being doesn't have anything to do all day, they're more vulnerable to relapsing from drugs, suicidality, depression, anxiety. Like that pivot point needs to happen for more people. That's why I keep going to the kind of like bridges to work and like to bridges to work and independence with our recovery community. Those are healthy activities.
Yeah. I am so sorry. I just noticed the time. We are almost out of time, but I do need to ask you one question. And since you are going up against an incumbent, you know, and an incumbent who in a very short time has developed a lot of relationships and a lot of power, and a lot of power for Brattleboro up in Montpelier that Brattleboro can and has leveraged. And you're running against Emily at a time when Tristan is also stepping down. So you're also losing another long-term representative with a lot of power in Montpelier. You know, why should people take, you know, why should people vote for you? What could you bring that would balance off the fact that we might be losing another person with a lot of power and clout in Montpelier?
There's an adage that the people who got us into a situation may not be the ones to get us out of it. So
Fair
it's
enough.
with that faith, hope, and courage and a fresh face. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? I certainly don't have all the answers, as you can tell by this interview, but I'm willing to work hard. I want to not only listen, but not only listen up there, but really listen to this district here and fully embrace, from my perspective, the job of being a legislator from your district, bring the issues of our community to Montpelier, and be responsive in that way. And I think I can do that.
And if people wanted to reach out to you, or if they have questions for you, how can they do that?
They can do that through my website. They can email me, which is on the website. They can direct message me on Instagram. I'd prefer an email first, and then if you want to engage in a phone conversation from there, it's not appropriate at this point, I think, to give out my phone number. And I'll say this, you know, community that's listening, we can be nice. We can have a competition. We can engage in dialogue. We can listen to one another, and we can be kind and not finger pointing and appreciate one another. We can do it differently here. You know, we can be a model of civility. Lord knows we really need it right now.
And, you know, at the beginning of this interview, you talked about the journey and how that's been meaningful for you. What have you learned about your district that maybe you didn't know coming into this process? You know, what has the journey taught you?
Well, I've learned that people keep their houses a lot cleaner than I do. When people invite me in, I'm like, wow, gosh, you know, everything is so tidy. Maybe just because I'm busy in the summer. So that's just a little small.
That's
thing.
probably part of it.
But what I've also learned is that people love living here. And people are very proud of Brattleboro. People are very proud of West Brattleboro. People are really at their core, even though they're complaining about things, deeply grateful, and really want to stay. And are frustrated and hurt that they even have to contemplate, maybe I can't afford to live here anymore. Maybe I just can't do that. And that's across the board. that's older Vermonters, that's working Vermonters. I haven't met any really mega rich Vermonters, but I'm still looking for those. I don't know if they live in our district or if they live somewhere else. I certainly know a lot of summer people that are nice.
Mhm.
No offense. I feel like I mean, I said be nice, and no, ooh, I'm picking on people. Not okay. Not okay.
Well,
Ah,
thank you.
yeah.
Amanda Ellis-Thurber, candidate for Windham District 7. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And good luck with the campaign. And for everyone else, of course, the Montpelier Happy Hour on WVEW 107.7 LP Brattleboro, your community radio station, will return next week at 2 p.m., rebroadcast every Wednesday morning. And of course, you can find us wherever you find your podcasts. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.